I did go to Oregon for 24 hours. I had to fly down and be at the celebration of life for my cousin's baby who passed away. So he'd be like my second cousin who passed away. It was rough, but you know what? They're all believers. And, I loved the fact that there wasn't bitterness and blaming God. There was celebration of what God had given to them and trust in God. There was sadness. No doubt there was sadness. And there was crying. But at the same time, there was trust in God. Anybody could trust in God when everything's going good, right?
Right. Yeah.
You hear me say that all the time. I mean, honestly, I'm not even sure that it's true trust. I mean, honestly, a lot of times I tell people, we talk about the fact that submission doesn't begin until you disagree. Right? Submission does not begin until you have a disagreement. So I'm a good submitter. I submit to pastor when pastor asks me to do something with a good attitude. I submit to my wife. I submit to my husband. We submit at work to the people who are in charge. I submit to those who are in authority. Most importantly, we submit to God, the creator of the universe. Amen?
Amen.
But there are other things. It's not only God that we're supposed to submit to. We are supposed to submit to leaders and work, our bosses. That is true, right? Not for something they tell you to do wrong. I mean, everybody always goes there, well, they tell me to do something wrong. Come on now. We're not talking about that. Everybody knows that. We're talking about something that you, in your great wisdom and intelligence, think you ought to do it a different way, and therefore you think they're wrong and you shouldn't do it that way. How many know that to be true? Right? But submission begins when you disagree. So when I don't even submit to somebody until I disagree. I know some people don't. I believe in submitting to my wife. You're like, what? Where's that in the Bible? Anyway. No, but the point is we are in this together and we are partners for what God is accomplishing. I submit to her all the time in the women's ministry. I'm the pastor of the church, but she runs her ministry. I submit. Now, don't be wrong. If I felt like that it was biblically wrong or something should be a different way, I can assert my authority, and she's good with that, right? But I don't do that to her. Does that make sense? Submission begins when we disagree. If you're just going along and you don't disagree, then that's not submission. That's a good thing. I like it when we all agree. How about you guys? Amen? But we're not going to always agree. Now, why am I saying this? Because I believe it's the same thing with trust. I'm using it as an illustration. That trust, I believe, begins when you're afraid to trust. Trust actually kicks in. It's something else before that, in a way. But when you've got to trust, God, does that make sense? I can trust him in the good times, and that's easy. And that's trust too. But it's real trust when it looks like that bad is happening around you, or bad might happen. And you're like, I trust you, God, in your sovereignty. In your sovereignty. Amen? Yeah. And that's a lot harder. How many think it's hard to trust God when things are messed up and things are hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to surrender and trust. But I encourage you to trust him no matter what. And that's what I saw yesterday. I saw a lot of trust in God. That God knows best and we trust him. And but it was difficult. And so I encourage you to just trust God. Amen?